What are the three most important things in life? Wow, what a broad question. Oh my gosh, where do I start? Well, I've got my thesis, my three things that I believe that you should invest in. You need to prioritize these in order of importance. The most important thing that you can invest in your life is the thing that sustains life itself, and it's your health. It's the thing you have the most control over, too. Outside of your genetics, the world is your oyster when it comes to your health. You control your diet, you control your physical activity, and you need to put your health above everything. And that goes to both mental health and physical health. Mental health is a bit harder to quantify than physical health. We categorize things a little more easily when it comes to physical health. You say, oh, you have heart problems, you have problems with your nervous system, you have skeletal problems, whatever, cancer, all that stuff. Whereas with mental health, we're a bit more limited in how we categorize things, but both are very important. And you know what? You're going to have to choose between health and some things, some other things at certain points in life, whether it's succumbing to peer pressure or a job that is just taking a toll on you. And you're going to need to prioritize your health, because I'll tell you this, you cannot take your health for granted. Your health sustains your life. You need to be in good health to continue. And once you stop being in good health, once there's a wrench thrown into your good health, at least something that you need to overcome, you've got a little problem, need to schedule a doctor's appointment or something like that, you're going to really wish that you hadn't done those things that jeopardized your health. It's all fun and games until your health gets jeopardized. And that's why stay away from cigars, cigarettes, alcohol, excessive alcohol at least. Some alcohol in moderation has been shown to be good for you, for example, red wine. Do everything that you believe is necessary to further your health. And those things that may harm your health, do them at least in moderation, at most in moderation, I should say. Do not overindulge. You will regret it. So, yeah, health comes before everything. If you're working too many hours, if you're sitting down too many hours a week to get that paper done or get that big project for work done, consider getting a standing desk. Consider dialing back your hours. Tell your boss, look, this is bad for my mental health. This is bad for my physical health. This is taking a toll on my mental health and my physical health, and I need to draw a line. Because you know what? So many things can affect your health, and there are all these other things, that you have to choose. They're important in life too, but none of it is more important than your ability to just get up in the morning and feel good, feel good physically and not feel like a mess mentally, not feel like you're about to have a nervous breakdown, not feel achy, not have an elevated heart rate, high blood pressure, headaches all the time. You can't have that stuff. You can't be dealing with it. At some point, when you're going through all this stress, if you're going through all this stress that's putting you in these problems, you've got to say no. You've got to draw the line, because the rat race can be put aside. Your friends, and their desire to have you engage in unhealthy habits with them, that can be put aside. And if they don't respect you because you won't do dumb, unhealthy stuff with them, so be it. They probably weren't that good of friends to have to begin with. They could be, but probably not. If they insist on you doing things that jeopardize your health with them, and they say that you not doing it is a sign that you're not a good friend, well, no. The best friends are the ones who encourage the best health in people. I encourage my friends to be healthy. I promote that type of thing. I don't shove it down their throats. I don't rule with an iron fist. I try to model good behavior. So you know what? Do stuff that's unhealthy for you, but only in moderation. Only in moderation. And if it starts to have negative consequences on you, dial it back. Dial it back to zero. Because look, obviously we can all take a little bit of screwing around, so to speak, in moderation. I get it. It's good to have fun. But fun can come at a cost. You can't steal happiness from tomorrow, bring it to today, and then be like, oh, whoa, shoot, no. I didn't know this was going to happen. No. There are choices that you make that are basically robbing you of your future, and you've got to be careful with those. So health is the number one thing. Health comes before anything. It's the number one thing you can invest in. The second most important thing is love. Love is very important. And why does it come after health? Well, you can't have love if you don't have health. Health is the thing that sustains life. You can't have love if you're freaking dead. I'm sorry to say. You can't have it. I mean, people will mourn you. People talk about how they loved you and how great you are. But if you're deceased, sorry, you're not going to be with your family. You're not going to be with your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife. That's not happening. So why is love more important than anything else? Why is it so important, even if it's not as important as health? Love is one of the greatest reinforcers of who we are, who we are loved by. You are the 5 people that you spend the most time around. I've heard that before. That's a pretty important quote. It's something to think about. Your friends love you usually. Your family should love you. The unfortunate reality is that you can't really control who your family happens to be. So some people get born into bad families. They just do, and my heart goes out to them, if they don't have parents who love them, if they have parents who are abusive to them, who yell at them, who demand they do chores and aren't grateful to them, who screech at them over inadequate grades or whatever, make them feel like they're not worthy. Everyone deserves parents who tell them that they're great, even if not everything they do is great, but they should tell them that they're great and always want them to improve. That's the balance. Not complacent parents who let their kids act like idiots and fail at everything and say, oh, well, you're still great. But parents who are kind, parents who want their children to improve. And once their children improve, they congratulate them. They show respect. They show up to their graduations. They meet their significant other. They go to their wedding. They cry tears of joy for them. The types of parents we all deserve, everyone deserves. You can't take that for granted. You can't take for granted having great siblings as well. Brothers and sisters who love the hell out of you, who want you to succeed. They share your DNA. They're you, and having them by your side, it's a true blessing. I've never been an only child. Being an only child does not sound particularly easy. It seems like you get a lot of attention from your parents. But to those of you who are only children, really try and build a strong relationship with your parents, and make strong friends too, because you don't have siblings, and siblings are a great blessing to have in life. Another aspect of love, of course, is romance, and that's something that you control. You control your own romance. You can go out and ask someone on a date. If someone asks you on a date, you have the choice to say yes or no. At least I hope you do. I hope that they are not holding a gun to your head and saying, you're going to get a beer with me, or you're going to get dinner with me Saturday at 8 p.m., okay? So you have the power to forge your own destiny with respect to romance, with respect to your sexual life and who you marry, who you date, all that stuff. What your kids look like in a sense. I mean, people are typically attracted to people who share a lot of features to them. So yeah, you build your own family, and you got to hope that your kids also turn out to be great too. I've never been a father, but I imagine that, there's a lot of pressure on parents when they think about, okay, what are my kids going to be like? Are they going to grow up to love me? Are they going to go down the wrong path? So you've got to invest in them. But with respect to romance, obviously there's the issue that we face in the modern world, where there's a lot of this, dating moving to online. There's a lot of struggles that seem to be so unique, not stuff that previous generations have had to deal with. Men in particular have complained about it being hard for them. And I do see that, okay, wow, men have something really difficult going on here. Women do too. Women have to deal with a lot of ridiculous, clingy, needy, abrasive, just rude, toxically masculine behavior from men. And men have to deal with flakiness from women. They have to deal with rudeness. They have to deal with snobbery, all this type of stuff, ghosting. The online world has really broken people's brains. It's made them so superficial. It's made them, honestly, it's weakened the power of people's connections, because when you meet someone in online dating and you schedule a date, they could just flake on you, They don't know you in person. There's no strings attached. They could just not show up. They could just unmatch you, ghost you forever. If you live in a city like New York that's really populous, you probably never see them again. They're not going to confront you like they would if you had a class with them or worked with them and be like, hey, you stood me up. What is wrong with you, you prick? You got problems. Why would you treat me like that? That's not going to happen. So the dating issue, again, it's such a big deal. And if you're someone who has a really great relationship, I want you to know that you should cherish that. If you're someone in particular who was born in the 1990s or the 2000s, prioritize that relationship. Try and find a way to strengthen it even more. And just remember how good you have it. A lot of guys born in the 90s, 2000s, they're struggling out there. They're struggling. And I would almost say that, yeah, if you're born in the 90s or 2000s and you have a good relationship, a long-term relationship with someone who really cares about you, it's not based on, getting money or something like that, or someone taking advantage of someone, then really take a moment and appreciate that, because so many people, they make it a thing of just complaining about the modern dating world, but they've got a point in that, they've got a point in that. You don't realize what you have until it's gone. And that goes for both health and dating and family. You have great parents, you grow to take them for granted, unfortunately. It's something that does happen, and you must resist that. You must resist the temptation to take all these amazing things that so many other people would kill for. Resist the temptation, or I guess the tendency to take that stuff for granted. I know nobody really consciously takes stuff for granted, but when you get so used to a luxury, you might just do that. So if you've got that type of relationship, cherish that thing. Don't act too crazy and smothering and to the point where you drive them away and make them feel like, oh, what's going on here? This person's just like a blubbering emotional mess. But really think about how good you have it. Write it down. If you're religious, you could even pray, that it gets stronger. Thank God for what you've got if you are religious. I am not religious, and that's something that I've talked about on this channel, but to those who are, I respect you, and I think that if you believe that your relationship is a result of religion, that's totally fine, as well as your health and your finances. You're entitled to that opinion. So I just mentioned finances, and that brings me to the next thing, the third most important thing, and that is finances. Finances, why are they so important? Well, look, they connect to health, they connect to romance, they help support them, It can be hard to have good options in the dating pool if you are not doing well economically. If you're making $20K, $30K a year, and you're a man, are that many women gonna wanna date you, You might not be able to afford a car, a house, all these things that make you more of a valuable man. And I hate to sound like a red pillar here, but it is kind of true. You just have more power when you have more money. It's the reality. And it's why I'm so big on fixing the economic system in the United States, investing in things like universal health care, stuff that'll help people not have to deal with so many bills, not have to worry. And this ties into the health thing too. When they have health issues, they won't need to worry about going bankrupt. They'll be able to, just go into a doctor's office, get a checkup, no need to worry, get surgery, get chemotherapy, not have to go bankrupt, not have to break the bank. Isn't that so cool? So yeah, finances, they can be make or break. I will say they're not as important as love or basically health, because I don't think that being in a financially bad situation is the end of the world, and you can always improve. You always can. There are so many things that you can do to make a quick buck in this world, and I'm not saying they're easy things to do. You could go out and pretend to be homeless and say, hey, could you give me some money to people, panhandle. You can do that. Some people have done it. It's dishonest, obviously, but it's a way to make money. You can start a YouTube channel. YouTube pays you. You can become a YouTube partner. That's pretty easy. Just get a camera, chill out at home, record some video like I'm doing, mouth off to a microphone about the things that are important in life. Get your money that way. Get educated. And I know it costs money too, but you can work throughout your education, and employers will actually really value that if you write it on your resume. Like, I worked to finance my education throughout school. They'll see that and they'll go, whoa, that is daring. That is powerful. That shows your work ethic. I want to have you work for me because you work hard. You've demonstrated your work ethic by the fact that you're like, yeah, I'm going to school. I don't want to take on all this debt, so I'm going to work at the same time. And you might have some sleepless nights. You might. But in the end of the day, you'll be paving a better future for yourself, a better road ahead. And yeah, finances, ultimately money is a social construct. That is the thing. When it comes to health, nothing about health is a social construct. If you suffer a heart attack, You cannot say, well, I didn't actually suffer a heart attack. What if society says I didn't suffer a heart attack, then I didn't. No, it doesn't work that way. There's a biological reality to things. If you have cancer, you cannot simply say, I don't have cancer. You can't. But with respect to finance, it's like we only give money power because it only has power because we say it has power. That's the reality of the situation. And obviously, I don't really see that changing anywhere in the foreseeable future, but it's just something to think about. People talk about, is the economy going to crash? Is the dollar going to become worthless? Is inflation going to get out of control and we're just going to be using cryptocurrency or like trading pebbles or something like that? I don't know. I think we're never going to be in a true post-dollar future. But look, money, at the end of the day, there's this old saying, you can't take it with you. Money cannot strictly be used to buy happiness. It can, in the sense that, I know for a fact I would be more happy if I made $100,000 a year than if I made $15,000 a year, because $15,000 a year is a joke in pretty much any part of the country. It's not enough to live on. It's under the minimum wage, basically. It's a joke, yeah. So 100,000 on the other hand, it's like, okay, it's pretty good, but compare 100,000 to 130,000. Are there situations where I'd rather make 100,000 than 130,000? I mean, yeah, it depends on the job, right? So, yeah, if that $130,000 a year job is super grueling, I'm gonna take the $100K a year job. If it gives me better work-life balance, if it's less taxing on my physical and mental health, that's an important thing. But yeah, finance out of these three things comes in last, because at the end of the day, money is a social construct, and you cannot buy happiness in a very strict sense. You cannot just say, I'm gonna pay some money to get happiness. You can buy stuff that makes you happy. I'll give you that, But, and I know this is something a lot of hardcore economic conservatives say in order to kind of, assuage the concerns of the poor, perhaps sometimes cynically, but you can't really, like, the more money you have doesn't necessarily make you happier. There are multi-billionaires, uber wealthy people who are depressed. They're sad. Why are they sad? Well, maybe that's because they've got some problems relating to the top two most important things in life that I've identified: health and love. Problems with their family, parents, daddy issues, whatever, their girlfriend stopped being attracted to them, their boyfriend's a dick, their siblings don't care about them, their siblings left them because they became a rich snob, a total a-hole, they can't stand them anymore, they don't have many friends. That's actually something that happens. You look at Ebenezer Scrooge, a fictional character from A Christmas Carol, but still, look at the way that having money does not necessarily translate to greater happiness in a very strict sense. It translates to a lot of good things overall, but at the end of the day, no amount of money could get me to sacrifice my health, and no amount of money could get me to sacrifice the people that I love, sacrifice my great friendships, my great romance, all that stuff. All of the things that you have going for you in life relating to your health and love are more important than anything related to finance. So work hard, of course, do that, but don't do that at the expense of your health or the love and the bonds that you have in your life. I have heard so many horror stories of jobs tearing families apart, actually. People disagree about, what field should you go into? Parents harassing their kids about, you need to grow up and be an engineer or a doctor or something like that, a lawyer. You can't go to school to do this. You can't be a theater kid or something like that. That's like, let your kid do what they want. They can make a good buck in things other than doctoring, lawyering, or engineering. I'm sorry to say. They don't need to be the CEO. Let them do what they want. Love them unconditionally. And give them freedom. Give them freedom, because giving someone freedom is the ultimate form of love. Obviously, things come at a cost. That there is an opportunity cost to going into some field that's not, the most lucrative. You pay money to get a college degree, but you can get something from that. You get something from it. You do. You learn things. Education is a valuable thing. It's important to be a lifelong learner. Learning, obviously, it's one of those things. I wouldn't put it in the top three most important things, education, but simply being able to think well. That's an important thing too. I guess I'm getting into my honorable mentions. Work your brain out. Maybe this ties a little bit into mental health too, but give your brain a workout. Do crossword puzzles, read plays, read scripts, all that stuff. Watch movies. Do stuff that's stimulating. Stuff that helps you think. Practice math if that really does it for you. Sudoku, I believe it is. Scrabble. Take practice LSATs if you want to go to law school. All of these little things that can make you smarter. These are great too. Maybe that's all in the health category. I don't know, but you got to give your brain a workout. So maybe that's number 4. Intellectual curiosity is number 4, because I'll tell you, it's so important that you just keep working your brain out. But yeah, ultimately, these are the 3 most important things in life: health, love, and finances. Nothing comes before health. I will tell you, you got to age gracefully. People say, oh, men look better as they age. Men get better as they age. No, you have to actually try to get that. You have to try. You have to put in effort, because if you do not prioritize your health as you age, you will start to look worse and worse and worse. Your skin will start sagging. You risk getting overweight, getting a beer belly, getting a puffy face, stuff like that. You've got to work out. You've got to remain at a low body fat percentage. You've got to do all the things that you did when you were young, and then you can start to look better. Then you can look better with age, actually, But yeah, health is so important. I will say that. As people, we move into our late 20s, our 30s, we have to be more careful about our calories. We also have to be more careful about the people that we get with, Who are we really dating? Vet each other when you date each other. Look into your values, And I'm not saying that, you should ditch someone because their political views are different from yours in some marginal way, or their religious views are a little different. But really consider, okay, do I want to spend time with this person? Do we really align enough to raise children together? And in fact, you can be totally different from someone and have fantastic chemistry with them. But don't ignore giant red flags when you see them. Don't do it. That is one of those things where it's like, okay, it can come back to bite you. It can come back to bite you hard. People, your late 20s, your early 30s, those are way too valuable years of your life to be messing around in. You've got to be ahead of the 8 ball, not behind it. You've got to be sharp, and you got to make yourself feel good without doing stuff that is bad for your health. That's one of the most difficult balancing acts. I find that when eating healthy, when getting in 10,000 to 20,000 steps a day, I just feel great. Listening to good music as well. Listen to good music while you walk. Do that stuff. That's great for your health. Some good music will do wonders for your mental health. Find something that gets you going. Your fight song, your hype song, as the kids sometimes call it. Stuff that just gets you ready. I'm not super big into what time of day you get up either. But sometimes I'll be like, I get up at 11 a.m. Sometimes I get up at 5 a.m. I'm volatile like that. But whatever works for you, do it. I don't think that there's anything particularly important about when you get up. Obviously, it's important to see the sun a good bit. So maybe getting up earlier would tend to be better because you have more time to get the sun. But yeah, don't become nocturnal. If you're working the night shift, that can be bad for your health. There are studies that have shown that. But yeah, to wrap it up, prioritize your health the most, followed by love, followed by finances. This has been Morris Philosophy 101. It's not the most common video I make, but I wanted to give you an insight into the way that I think, and this ties into politics too. I'm a political commentator. One of the reasons that I'm so big into protecting the environment, as opposed to pandering to business interests and cutting regulations for them too, is that the environment affects our health a lot. Think about air quality and water quality. That stuff really plays into our health, and we've got to make sure that we have a clean environment if we want to protect our own health and the health of our future generations, our children. I want my kids to not have asthma or any of these types of conditions that are more common when there's poor air quality, poor water quality, issues related to climate change. But look, if you disagree with me on political issues, I still think that you can have the right idea when it comes to how you manage your life. These are my 2 cents. Health comes first, love comes second, finance comes third. Everything else, there's important stuff in there, but these are the 3 things that you must prioritize. This goes for any age whatsoever. But I particularly am trying to talk to people in my own demographic, my own age range with this video. I hope that this was helpful to you. You're simply the type of people that I relate to the most, just by virtue of the fact of the time period in which we were born and the time period that we grew up in and are growing up in, because I'm still not fully grown, basically. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you disagree with me? If you have a different view of how to go about life, if you have different views related to health, how to best manage your health, if you disagree with something I said with respect to family and love and finances, all that stuff, let me know what you think. I'm just trying to give good life advice here, give good insight as a guy who's gone through college, a guy who's gone through law school, and a guy who overall just wants to help humanity, but also tells it like it is, doesn't sugarcoat things. If you lose track of what's important, you're gonna have to get a good butt whooping, okay? You need a tough guy to come in there and tell you, you need to do this right, a drill sergeant, if you will. Let me know what you think. Like, comment, or subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. This has been The More the Merrier, and I look forward to speaking to you in my next video.